Greetings, everyone, and welcome to the Content Market Webinars by DICM. This webinar series, which takes place on the third Wednesday of each month, aims to share insights and experiences from experts in the industry. From this month, we will be covering the art of storytelling, where we will discuss all things content related to biopics, documentaries, and geo, including viewership insights, top performers, and the trends. Joining us today are Teresa Patoska from Sense the Future Pictures and Daruk Yenihayat from Blue Media. Just to introduce myself, my name is Vijaya Cherian. I am the managing partner at CPI Trade Publishing, and I am editorial director also of the broadcast and satellite division at the publishing house. We're based in Dubai. I have covered the MENA broadcast and satellite markets from a technical and commercial point of view for the last 20 years. We also produce a lot of conferences. Now, our first speaker today is Teresa Patoska. She is the CEO and founder of the award-winning company Sense the Future Pictures. The company has won the Best TV and Film Communications Agency Award in Europe, Middle East, and Africa in 2019. Teresa is a television producer with an eye for a story, a strategic PR specialist, and a journalist. So she has been working with the Japanese broadcaster Kansai TV, affiliated with the Fuji network, on publicity of their scripted series since September 2022. She also recently interviewed Robert Davi on his new role. She originates, develops, she produces factual television programs with global appeal across crime, current affairs, history, science, renovation, documentaries, and formats for the international market. Now, she joined the PACT UK Export Accelerator in 2018 after forming Sense the Future Pictures to bring together the TV and communications offering under a true storytelling base. The company recently became a full member of PACT UK, and she is here to talk more about it. So I'm delighted to welcome Teresa Patoska. Teresa, may I ask you to have your video and unmute yourself?
Hello, thank you very much, Vijaya, for such a great introduction. Hello, everybody. So I'll be sharing my screen. Just bear with me 1 minute. Apologies, that's the end of the presentation. We want to go to the beginning. So hello, everyone. Welcome to the Art of Storytelling. I am the founder and CEO of Sense the Future Pictures, and I'm here to talk to you about the art of storytelling and how that works for us at Sense the Future Pictures, and also to share some of my knowledge around documentary making over the past few years, particularly as we've all had had the ups and downs through pandemic, and we've experienced many different ways of doing things and had to innovate endlessly. So
sorry,
let's
Teresa.
start with, yeah.
Sorry to interrupt, Teresa, but we can't see your screen. So do you want to just check?
You can't see my screen? Okay,
yeah,
bear with me. Oh, okay. Sorry about that. I do apologize.
Yes, it's on now. Thank you.
Great. Wonderful. So I'm here to talk to you about the art of storytelling, and we'll quickly start with the first slide about the 10,000 hour rule, which I'm a firm believer in because I've actually done this myself. And whether you are a chess player, a neurosurgeon, or a storyteller, the more time you spend working on your pitches and pitching endlessly, the more likely you are to become a great idea developer and series developer and creator of series ideas, and it has worked for me. And through trial and error, you just become better and better at it, which is why I bring in Malcolm Gladwell's quote here around the 10,000 rule. You might be familiar with this or not, but success requires entertainment. And the way you get to that is through practice. And so that's part of the storytelling process, and it's part of my process. And I've got to the point where I'm able to conceptualize quite quickly. If you get to that point, you know that you're there. So let's move on to you now, and to the good stories that often follow the people who work under pressure, which is what I'm going to talk about next. And also, can you see that? Sorry, can you see the full screen? Just to check.
Yes,
Vijaya,
yes,
you can. So what's the story? Well, the story is made up of the characters and the concept. You've got to develop it. You've got to know what your narrative is. You've got to know what the motivation is for the characters. Who are the people who are involved? Then you've got the interviews, and you've got the truth that comes through according to your timeline, of course, and who is the audience, and do they really care? So good stories often follow people under pressure through transformation, ideally to redemption. So we tend to dress these stories as much as possible, but we continue to tell the same story. And the reason why I say this is because we tend to enter hidden worlds more often than not in our storytelling. And what we do is we assemble the right team to take these stories on and take our viewers on a journey and take these stories and bring them to life. So most successful factual programs work well just by taking audiences behind the scenes. So this is what I'm talking about. We're taking the audiences behind the scenes of a familiar world we know from the outside, and we take them into these maybe hotels or historical buildings or stores. So inside Dubai, Playground of the Rich, that's something that the BBC made for their viewers, and they screened that to bring viewers into the true tax haven for the rich and the desert paradise, which we were not all that familiar with. And we're also in Dubai today during this webinar, so it makes sense to mention that series to you. All of these have been successful series because each reveals how much of the familiar world was hidden because we only knew it from the outside. So these dramas, or these, let's say, documentary dramas, need heroes, and heroes need opponents, and we need conflict within these stories if we are to capture the audience and also convince the commissioners that, you know, the audience will care enough about the stories for them to commission the series. So TV reduces people, so you need characters with the potential to be larger than life. So this is part of the early stage when you're conceptualizing, thinking about the characters. Choosing the characters is important because many of the best series reveal people reacting to and transforming under that pressure that you will see on screen, and show us those universal truths about people that we all can connect with through the screen. So follow people we care about is really important here. We have to turn presenters and contributors into people and consider, will the audience care about them? And how we're going to turn them into people. And we have to convince them that what we're doing is something they want to be involved in. And that's part of the process of persuasion. Also, when you're in the early stages, you have to spend time with them. So it's great to be able to start with a series with high stakes. And Sense the Future Pictures during the development process looks at, let's say, buildings, historical buildings, and will say, these buildings will collapse or be lost to history unless. So what will happen unless we do X? So that's part of the narrative process we then enter into during the development phase. I often hear producers tell me about one arena they are close to, but they're unable to find the story within it. But identifying that arena in which characters can conflict can be a way to discover the characters who people it and the story that could be right there in front of you. Audiences love seeing the scenes of places we see as long as they are seen from a new angle. And characters and the layers to the story are important. Also film technology, which I mentioned at the bottom, top of that slide, not the bottom of that slide, but it's part of that process as well. Film technology can also help in taking us into those unfamiliar worlds. It could be a new photographic technique that documents life that we've never seen before. But in a series where we access historical hidden worlds, technology can solve the problem of how you recreate an interior of a temple building that you might not be able to get to. And we had this challenge actually with one of our series where we almost thought we'd lost an episode, and how are we going to do this if we don't have the possibility to be on location? So actually then we look at recreating the interior of a temple building, and we look at how we solve the problem of how you shoot that in a world that we might not be able to access for that particular time, at that particular moment in time. So as the development exec here, I think about what is the story and what are we telling and what are we going to tell under those circumstances as well. So the most successful stories have those layers of meaning below the surface. So main story and subtext showing us what it must have been like to live in, let's say, 1 BC or 54 BCE, if we're referring to a particular building in a historical series, maybe in one episode. How do we refer to that? The series requires access, as with historical series set in maybe the Middle East, which in fact is something that we're currently involved in. We have to be prepared to take a significant amount of time to get the access to develop those series and to get the right people on board and the institution involved on board. And it does pay to persist and to play the long game here. And that's really important. And I put this photo here of myself with Margaret Thatcher because I knew Margaret Thatcher for a period of time of my life. I had access to her. I wasn't then involved in storytelling and developing TV shows, but I threw a party for Margaret Thatcher and I had access to Margaret Thatcher. And that took several years of building those relationships. So it does pay off. And you do have to play that long game to get to that point. So that I'm illustrating that here just for the purpose of this presentation. So just to say that choosing the story and revealing hidden worlds, you have to choose the right story and you have to have those right characters and persuade them to take part. You have to be patient in getting the access, and you have to then also have the institutions on board and make them understand what that entails, help them to understand, and let them know what that entails, because the negotiation for access is a balancing act, really, and the editorial integrity is important, and retaining editorial control is part of that process. So when you're in discussions, you look at what the story will involve and then what the access will involve and how much access you need. And in the Middle East, that can be a very challenging process. There are many more hoops to jump through than I find, let's say, in the UK market. So you look at room for events triggered by actions which you would do anyway, but you look at what they could be. Perhaps if you're working in a different territory, you're filming different territory, what those actions and unrelated events might be that you wouldn't find in the given market that you reside in. And also the causality that will reveal those hidden worlds even further and then allow you to get that access to make that documentary 2 years down the line. So, or 3 years down the line, because it does take time. So just moving on to the next slide, you put the drama and the documentary together, and then you have a way to move through the story that you might not have before. And that all comes down to all the different components that you saw going back to the earlier slide. So just to then touch on another area that I've been asked to bring into discussion, the art of world building, which in fact goes back to the development phase of your project. Usually, I would say that for documentary, transmedia offers a way to reach new audiences and immerse them in the story world, and you incorporate different perspectives, extend the life of a project, and experiment with nonlinear participatory and interactive elements. So the 4 Ps that are really important when you talk to a brand marketer who may not be a storyteller about, let's say, taking transmedia campaign and allowing it to be, let's say, the package for the world you're building as a storyteller. You have to consider being persuasive, persistent, participatory, and personalized. Two of those, of course, are part and parcel of storytelling. So the life of a project can be extended through transmedia. And if you allow yourself room to experiment with non-linear, you're able to then build a holistic narrative from the very, very early stages by incorporating sort of original authorship and also ensuring that you can do 360-degree type pioneering work. So just to finish off, I'll give you an example. In the Emmy award-winning web doc, Out of My Window, which is High Rise Out of My Window, filmmaker Katerina Chisek explores high-rise living around the world. This is one of the world's first interactive 360-degree documentaries, which I thought would be very helpful for you to understand where I'm coming from, the transmedia side. The pioneering multi-year project about life in residential high-rises includes several interactive web documentaries featuring diverse technologies and techniques from 360-degree photography and citizen media to the web. A series of short videos was also created as part of the project in collaboration with the New York Times. And this was actually very successful. Explores the state of our urban planet told by people who look out on the world from high-rise windows amid the ruins of modernism. So it's very powerful. It features 49 stories from 13 cities told in 13 languages. It's multi-year, multi-platform global documentary. And that's the way I would want to illustrate transmedia. So I hope that helps you to think about the world you might be building, whatever story you might be telling, whatever project you might currently be working on. So thank you very much for listening. And over to you, Vijaya. I'm just going to move to the last slide if I can find my cursor and leave it there for you to pick up my contact details. If you'd like to reach out to me, feel free to do so. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Teresa. That's a great presentation. I have some questions for you after our next presentation. Our next speaker for today is Doruk Yenihayat, who represents Blue Media. Doruk, are you there? Could we have you on video? Excellent. Hello. So Doruk has been in the TV business for many years. He's worked in different roles within the Turkish TV series and in documentaries in terms of production. He joined Blue Media as a sales executive. But he's been an all-rounder who has worked on scripts, productions, location scouting, and Turkey is his core market. So he's responsible for the distribution and sales of Blue Media's finished content in the American and European territories. Doruk, thank you so much for joining us today. Over to you now.
Thank you so much for the invitation. I hope everybody can hear me clearly, and already thank you for listening. So, as Blue Media, we are a distribution company, but we work under a big group company called Hacı Yatmaz, and we have lots of different companies, and Blue Media just one of them, which does the distribution of the finished content. But we do also produce our own documentaries. We do have a technological company who works in VR models and stuff like that. So just briefly to explain, as Blue Media, we do distribution internationally. We are pretty strong in Turkey and MENA region, of course, but we do our businesses internationally. We attend to every market. We try to do our best and try to find the best finished product for best TV series, for the best TV stations for the publishing. So today I want to talk about two of our own produced documentaries, which will go really good, I think, with Teresa's presentation. So first one that I want to talk about is the stories of the hidden worlds. Since this webinar is about art of storytelling, I will give you two examples of our two episodes in this documentary, which will really good present the storytelling of these countries, cities, and the places that we discovered. So in the hidden world, story of the hidden worlds, we talk about the languages, the cultures that are disappearing rapidly because of the globalization. And the first country that we visited is Nigeria, and there's a city called Makoko in Nigeria, which is actually, which is the people live on the sea. The third part of the city is uh, full of labyrinths, waterways, and stuff like that. It is next to Lagos, and there are 300,000 people who call this place home. So it was really interesting to go there and see the people who lives there. They don't have electricity, no sanitation, nothing at all. They do everything with, they get their food from the sea. They do their sanitation needs from the sea. And it is really interesting to see people just excluded from the world and living their life with just so little materials. I want to tell you one little interesting part about Makoko is that when we went there, there was a funeral, and this was not a funeral that I saw any other place before. For them, this is the last day of the deceased people, so they try to make it the best day for him. They make him wear like really good clothes, and there's a festive emotions in the city. So you can see people that they're really happy, but there's a deceased people also. So we try to capture every image, really good visual styles with 4K visuals. And these places are the places that nobody ever went to. So it was really great to see and really great to share with you in 4K. It was really, really great. And the other city I want to talk about is Omikon, Russia, which is the pole of cold. It is the world's first uninhabited city, and it's like minus 77 degrees. People just freezing there. It's so cold. Its average is minus 58 degrees during all year. Just a funny info about the city: the students are actually allowed to go to school if it's minus 50 degrees, which was amazing for me to see. It's unbelievable for someone who comes from Turkey to see something like that, because because I know that even me, when I went to school, I didn't want to go to school, and there was a shuttle who takes me to school as well. But there's these kids go to school at minus 50 degrees. So it was really fascinating to see these conditions that people live in. The town, if you want to know about the town is a cluster of wooden houses whose foundations are sunk deep into permafrost, and also earned the reputation of the coldest inhabited planet on this inhabited city on planet. So moving on to our other documentary, which is Abandoned Places. We went to 22 countries. Most of them are European countries such as Germany, Italy, Poland, Belgium, France, Czech Republic, etc. So as you know about the name, is abandoned places. These places are abandoned and nobody lives there anymore. It can be because of a catastrophe that happened, or just simply left to be deserted. As you know, Chernobyl, in one of our episodes, we speak about Chernobyl. We actually got really special permissions to enter the places where no tourists can enter to. We put different costumes, different suits that will protect us from the radiation. And again, we used 4K visuals to captivate as best as we can and transcend it to the viewers and make them feel like they're actually there with us and discovering the places. So the other one that I want to talk about is a church which is in Western France and also in Czech Republic, Prague. It's a ghost church in Prague. It's just like this was like a scene from a horror movie. It was like really different, but everywhere we go, we managed to captivate the church's different style, energy, and the memories that happened there. All these places were built for a reason at the time, and they are all abandoned now, but they managed to hold on to their stories and the memories. We try to make the people feel like that they are with us when we visit these places. I think that the most important part about the storytelling is to find the best location and find the best captivating stories and cultures to transcend to the viewers, and to be able to live in harmony and and document these images in harmony with the people who lives there. So which I think this is the most important part about storytelling, and these are, I think, our pinnacle produced documentaries that explains best the storytelling about what happened there and what will happen there and about the culture and the people. Thank you so much for listening to me. Thank you so much for the invitation again.
Thank you, Doruk. That is awesome. I think after hearing about those documentaries, if I was a buyer, I would really have been keen to buy into some of those documentaries. So
Thank you so
I
much.
think, yeah, I think your company is doing an amazing job, and I'm sure it would be very easy to sell those documentaries. Yeah, you sell into different markets. Okay, that's excellent. So I would just like to encourage our viewers now to send in any questions you may have at this point through the chat portal. In the meantime, I have a few questions for Teresa and Doruk. Teresa, could you have your, oh, excellent, your video on as well. So let me start with Teresa. Could you tell us a little bit about the development of narratives specifically for international markets?
Yes, thank you, Vijaya. Yes. So where would you like me to start from?
Well, tell us about how it is to develop narratives for different markets, whether it is, you know, I think you're doing something for the Middle East, maybe as opposed to doing something in the APAC market. I believe it would be very different. Yeah, you would take a different approach. Maybe perhaps talk to us about that.
Yes, so I think you do not only do you think about the ethical side, you think about the cultural elements that come into play. I think just thinking about what Doruk was talking about with his all the different countries that he's been working in. I would say that when you're working in the Middle East, you have many other hoops you need to jump through, and you need to get a lot of permissions to do things. So I think that's the key thing. Also, representation on camera, and I'm not talking about diversity here. I'm talking about what's considered to be correct from a governmental perspective. So if we're doing any drone filming, then we'll need to get approvals from a government body if it's particularly in relation to an ancient building that's where there's a lot of history, and it's all about representation for the country itself on camera via another channel in another market if it's commissioned across, you know, if there are multiple commissioning partners. So all this needs to be taken into consideration. I'm not too worried really about losing footage. I'm more worried about editorial integrity. So that's the key thing. So if we lose any footage in that process, then as long as we can, you know, the edit will enable us to tell the story we want to tell within the episodic series, then I'm comfortable with, you know, losing footage. So I think it's all about making sure that your story just holds up the way it's represented ultimately. Thank you. Yeah.
And you mentioned developing a history series specifically for the Middle East. So what are perhaps the ups and downs of, say, an access-led series? What are the challenges around storytelling, and how is the narrative potentially changing, perhaps, in the MENA market?
I think it really is has a lot to, it really is dependent on getting to the location as well, because it's a slow process. So it's not as if you can just suddenly, you have a lot of planning that you need to do, and the logistics are very important, and everything needs to work seamlessly, which of course it sort of never really does work that seamlessly, but you know, you make it into as much as a seamless production process as possible. So it does require a lot of planning, and sometimes it's the case that the access company or let's say the end the institution at the end of the, let's say the chain of conversations that you're having says, well, actually you want to do this a lot sooner because we need to do, if it's an engineering show or a, you know, it's sort of impossible engineering type show, then we might want to move the work forward, which is basically what happened with one of my episodes for one of the series that I developed during the pandemic. And so ultimately then you're in a very difficult position because you can't get there within, you know, 2 weeks. You have to plan for 6 weeks. So it's a whole other, ball game that then you're entering into, and which is why I mentioned technology.
Right. I had a question for you, Doruk, as well. You mentioned documentaries done across different parts of the world. But what about the Turkish market itself? I mean, what are the, what are the Turkish TV series into these days? Given that it's so relevant in the MENA market and it's very attractive to this market. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
So in last years, we saw an upward trend, especially in the TV series, which talks about Orientalisms and like Arabic culture and stuff like that, the Ottoman culture. We saw that they really blasted off, like stuff about Ottomans, sultans, and the huge historical values of the culture of the Ottoman Empire. So I think that that kind of TV series is still relevant. But since it's summertime right now, people love a great love story and romance story. So the main focus of the production companies is actually on the daily slots of the TV stations. About like the thing about Turkey is that we tend to love everything about arabesque and dramatic. We love a really good love story. So mainly the show that is airing on TV right now is similar love stories, which usually contains hard achieving love between partners because of their social economic status, families, or the society and stuff like that. So right now for the summer, every TV station and every production company, as well as ours, try to make a TV series for the daily slots that can be shown and that can be captivating for the viewers that really likes to see themselves on the TV series in one of the characters and make a good relation with the character, and they tend to never leave the TV, never leave the series and finish it till the end.
Interesting. I didn't realize that trends could be seasonal as well. That, you like to see something in the summer, you like to see something in the winter.
Yeah.
That's very interesting. It's also probably because of the holidays and more people are probably sitting at home doing nothing.
like before, and many years ago, before in the summertime, when the summer came, people just watched like formats, good entertainment shows, quiz shows, like shows where the people do like sport activities and stuff like that. But it changed, it shifted to daily slots for the TV series, dramatic TV series. And right now it's really popular, as you can see in lots of the markets. It's usually about the TV series about historical side, which has a historical subject, or love stories, dramatic stories, where we can see ourselves in the story as well.
Okay, that's interesting. Specifically coming to your documentaries, because you mentioned some of the documentaries you're doing. Have there been any major trends in audience demographics for documentaries over the last decade?
What I want to say about this is, in the MENA region, documentary is like really important. People in MENA region really loves watching good documentaries, and they tend to understand good production. Since they watched a lot of documentaries, they really understand the good story and a good production. So right now the trend is current affairs, recent history, like terrorism, stuff that happens all around the world. Trend is up in an upward trends about current affairs. But for the last year, actually, when there was a World Cup in Qatar, there was many documentaries who did really good on lots of TV stations about sports, biographies about football players, coaches, and also with the death of Queen Elizabeth, of course, the biography subject is really blasted off during the year. But right now, both of them are in downward trends. And again, the recent history, culture stories, historical documentaries, again in an upward trend in the MENA region.
Do you see anything particular during Ramadan? Does the viewership, does it really change in Turkey?
During Ramadan, I mean, daily slots does not change that much, but for the prime time it changes. For 30 days, we watch TV shows about the religion, like every night, every day, every night we see stuff about different informations about religious people, and the religious people come to the live shows, talks about what they know, and people have like talk shows, like American style talk shows during the nights where people can ask their questions about religion to a professional, like to an imam and to a people who knows everything mainly. So during the Ramadan, we tend to air different documentaries for the kids as well, who teaches about the good ways of the Islam and stuff like that. And also, as I said, like live talk shows, and every night there's all prime slots always filled with Ramadan contents for 30 days.
Okay. Well, I've got a lot of questions coming in from our audience now. So I'm just going to throw these to you all, and whoever wants to answer, you guys can answer it. So what, according to you all, are some of the key differences between, say, producing a long-running docu-series versus a limited series or a mini-series?
You mean a returnable series?
Yeah.
What are the differences?
Yeah, it's probably what they probably mean is the difference between producing one as opposed to, you know, doing the other one in terms of challenges, perhaps.
Well, you always want to be making a returnable series because it's you know, that's what you want to aim to do. So
Yeah.
that's I mean, tends to be the case that you're more formatting, that you have more of a format if it's returnable. I mean, you could have a limited series, which is a formatted series, but it may just, you know, you may not have that many stories that you can cover, so it becomes a limited series. I would say that would be the difference. But yeah, that's my point. Thanks.
I think, but from what Daruk said, I think they're not so much returnable series, they're more limited series, yeah, especially if you're doing on communities and stuff like that, wouldn't they be?
Yeah.
While yours is
like everyone sees, I think most of our, like with the able platforms such as Netflix, HBO and stuff like that, we really see lots of limited documentary series where it talks about a specific subject that is captivating, that not many people knows about it, and it is interesting for the viewers. It can be about the culture, it can be about the current situation that is going on in another part of the world. Even we see lots of documentaries about serial killers, which does really well in America and Europe and stuff like that, which I don't think it is, which I don't think it is really great, since we cannot regulate the viewers who watches it and stuff like that. But as I said, they are really blasting off in the trend right now. The limited series, I think, is the way to go right now. But it's just my point.
Can I ask, sorry, do you mind if I just ask Doric, when you say limited, how many episodes are you seeing there?
4 episodes, 5 episodes, usually 5 episodes, 4 episodes. I mean, it depends. In our documentary about the hidden worlds, we got 6 episodes, but like we talk about 6 countries here, so it is, we couldn't make it 5. We really wanted to talk about lots of different places. As I said, we went to Russia, Nigeria, Peru, Uzbekistan, places like that. And if you manage to hold it on like not more than 7 episodes, people really tend to watch it till the end. But when it's more than 10 episodes, people maybe get bored after the 7th episode because it's just become repetitive. Even though the places are different, the main thing we talk about is this is a place where nobody ever sees. This is the people where nobody ever knows that lives in this planet. So it's kind of becomes repetitive, but I think 5 episodes is the way to go about the limited series.
It's interesting to hear, you know, how it works in different markets. In this market, it looks like the limited series probably attracts the attention of the viewers more. While Teresa, you seem to be saying that the returnable ones, where you probably keep them hanging, you have a cliffhanger, and then you probably bring them back with another set. Yeah, that's what I'm assuming.
Yeah. Well, I suppose it's about how high the stakes are, you know, and whether you've got the audience for it as well. I mean, you know, whether it be, I mean, I think what Doric has said is I mean, I think that it's it. You can't really go how much further you're going to go with it. I mean, could you go any further around the world? I think you sort of you've opened that door to those hidden worlds, but how much of high stakes have you got within that series? I'm not sure there's enough conflict there to keep people watching for another series. So I think that's the difference, really.
Okay, there is a question here about how do documentary producers ensure that their productions are relevant and resonate with audiences? And here I suppose they mean resonate with different audiences, different types of audiences. I'm assuming it could be not just in the same market, but probably across different markets. So how do you guys do it?
Do you want to
just
go,
to,
Dora?
yeah, just to talk about briefly, I can say a couple of things. So for it to be captivating to the people all around the world, it shouldn't be a subject which is relevant to some of the people that lives in some regions, such as,
Yeah.
I mean, if we talk about relationships between Syria and Turkey, nobody in United States gonna watch this because it is not interesting for them. They don't know like they don't know the relationship between the people. They don't know the culture. They don't know anything. So it is not captivating for them. But what we do is, as I said as I said in the last question, we try to make it more globalized documentary series. In one of the episodes or couple of episodes, we are sure that most of the people will be captivated by this episode and the subject, such as sport documentaries that I talk about during the Qatar World Cup. So we all know that everybody watches World Cup. Like one of three people should know about World Cup that happens in Qatar. So this can be a subject relevant at the moment that you can produce a documentary about it, and you are sure that everybody will be captivated and everybody will be interested in the subject. Because even though if this viewer is from United States, which is where there's soccer and football is not really relevant, it becomes relevant, but not that much as in Asian countries or Middle East or European countries. So you know that since this is a World Cup, quadrillion World Cup, it will be captivating for the people that lives outside these territories that is interested in football and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So we try
And
to,
I'd say, sorry.
yeah, of course.
No, I was just going to say, and to your point, actually, that's quite, it's time sensitive. So then it becomes related to a specific event, and that can be the case that it's related to something that's happening in the world. But I would say in the UK, yes, I mean, the same sort of conversation I'll be having around if I bring a global story to a UK broadcaster, then how relevant is it to the audience? Will it be recognizable enough? Will it cut through? And if it's a global story, it has to be as big as 9/11, where everybody it resonates with people around the world. Someone in some way in the UK will be connected as much as someone in I don't know, in North Africa will be connected to that story because it affected us all in one way or another, or touched us, should I say. It was a very big event. So if it's whether it be crime, whether it be, I mean, like for example, renovation shows, that's one thing. That travels more easily, but you tend to do it with relevance to the given market. So I wouldn't pitch the same, let's say, renovation show into the American market as I would to the UK. And then also it's just dependent on, what those trends are. So you do have to know what's happening in the home buying market, for example, or, is there a cost of living crisis? All those sort of big kind of trends that are affecting the way people are living their lives. And if you understand what's going on in society, you can reflect it back into your work, and then, your audience will respond. So that'd be my response to that.
I think we've had a few related questions from audiences on that, how do cultural differences impact storytelling and what should storytellers be mindful of when addressing diverse audiences? So I think you guys have addressed that, yeah? That's my understanding of it. So, Teresa, this question is specifically for you. Do you have any long-running documentaries that are keeping its popularity year on year?
Well, we've had 3 years of pandemic, so at the moment it's more a case of we're a lot of what we've got, like we're selling like quite a number of hours of content, TV series content into the international market, and ultimately these are returnable series that I'd expect to return. Whether they will or not, we'll see. But, you know, they can also land in one territory and not another. So they might be long running somewhere else and not, you know,
Yeah.
in the market you reside in. Does that answer
Uh,
the question?
I think so. Yeah, I think that's a good answer. So are you guys looking for co-productions or co-developments in your respective companies? That's a question from one of the viewers.
Yeah. So in every market, as I told you, since we are under a big group company, our production company always looks for opportunities in co-productions, what we can do together. Because let me give you an example. Because there was a company in Spain that I don't want to give the name of it, but we were talking about a co-production business that, like, about a documentary, and they brought up so much ideas on the table, and it is not possible for us to know these informations because they are
Yeah.
living there and they know the insides outs of it and what can we do about it and what is the best possible way to do and produce this documentary. So I think the co-production side is really important, whether it can be money wise or the idea wise, the business relationship between the two companies. But yeah, actively we are always looking for co-production opportunities, since it brings lots of things to the table other than money, as well as money. But yeah.
Can I add to that? Yeah, so like with the Middle East, considering this is like the MENA region is of importance here. So yes, we would work for production services company partner on the ground. So that would enable us then to, you know, crew up on the ground. So we'd bring our own sort of core team across, and then, you know, we'd have the production services company and then the fixers and so on. And then that's not a traditional co-production, so to speak, but that is a way of, you know, sharing the workload, so to speak. But with co-production, I think, as Dorrit mentioned, yes, it's what you don't know in another territory, you might then be able to co-produce with a partner, let's say, whether it be in the American market or whether it be in the German market. Currently in the German market, we're looking at doing co-production, and we can't do it without a co-production partner.
Yeah. And, you know, when you say something like that, guys, I also presume that people will then want to know how they can reach out. Oh, I'm sorry. How they can possibly reach out to both of you.
Oh,
or reach your company.
we can put the details up. Should I put the details up? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I think people will want to know how to reach out to you for co-productions or co-developments, especially if there are people here asking those kind of questions. And that's something.
If I type it in chat, would you be able to share it with the?
Yes. I think the chat is probably better.
Yeah. So I shared our website.
Yeah.
For you to share it with us, and I will be sharing my email information so they can directly write to me.
Okay. So in the case of Teresa, the email address has been shared at the moment. So if anyone wants to take down those details, that is there. And in the case of Doruk, do you want to just come back on video again so everyone can see your name, your full name? Doruk, are you there?
I think I also want your contact details, Doruk.
Of course, I typed it in chat, so
yeah,
no problem.
Yeah. So I think everyone can see Doruk Yeni Hayat's full name. Yeah, Yeni Hayat. So it's first name dot last name at blue-media.tv. So anyone who's looking for those details, it's there. You
can also reach out to me through LinkedIn with my name and surname. It will be easier for you as well.
Okay, excellent. I think somebody is also having their other. I can hear us playing through the other. Have you got the screen? Have you got a second screen playing? So I can hear it echoing, I think.
Oh, okay. Sorry, shall I put my...
Yes, that's great. Thank you, Teresa. That helps. So I have got a few more questions for you. We've got another 10 minutes and we've got some amazing questions here. So How has the rise of social media influenced documentaries? Is that something
Like
you guys want to take up? Okay.
for us, just to answer just to answer briefly, for us, the thing is, social media, influences the trends that's going on right now. So when a subject is really popular on social media, I want to give an example about what happens in China, what happens in Turkey, what happens in MENA and stuff like that. Because we saw that there was a earthquake, huge earthquake happened in Turkey during the last year. So before the social media, these earthquakes happened in Turkey before, but with the social media, we saw that people actually inquired about documentaries about these earthquakes, just like the ones that happened in Japan. So I think social media influence can be good, relatively can be good, but it also affects the customers, the clients' needs and change their needs sometimes. Because we know that they're not looking for something like they want. I know that it's not going to work on their TV station, but since they saw it all the time on the Instagram, TikTok, and stuff like that, they think that this type of subject is really good for their TV station, but it is not. So it can be good or bad. It's really important to read the statistics and how does it work in demographic places, where does these views come from and stuff like that. But yeah,
Mhm.
it's really important about the subjects and what you're gonna do about the project.
Okay.
Yes, can I add to this? Yes. So just to add to that, actually, I did a talk at MIPCOM a couple of years ago on disinformation. And in fact, it was quite important at this time when we were seeing so much of this fake news type content traveling around Twitter, and it spreads so fast. So you really do have to be aware of that, and also in terms of imagery. And I think we saw that fake Pope, didn't we, traveling around, the Pope in a puffer type image, which was a fake Pope in a puffer image, you know, which travel around the world. So that just gets a great example of what can happen, you know, now.
Yeah. Okay. What are some of the common mistakes to avoid when crafting and delivering a story? That's something you guys want to take up?
Big question.
I did think. But
Crafting and
okay,
delivering. We'll get
how about
the
two common mistakes?
two common mistakes.
Yeah.
So, well, if you haven't got if you haven't figured out what your story is in the way that you really need to tell it, and you haven't got the right buy-in. So usually, I mean, I think having commissioner on board will stand you in good stead. So if you don't have the financial backing in the beginning, then you have to be quite conscious of what works in the commercial market, which means where does your story resonate with your audience. So make sure that, you know, there is a market for your story first of all. That's you know, I mean, a lot of storytelling that I hear about, which I think I mentioned during my presentation before, that people come to me and say, oh yeah, you know, I want to talk about this world, but they still haven't got a story, they don't know what it is. Well, figure out what your story is within that world, and who the people are who can represent, you know, the who can be the carriers of the, you know, of the story or the journey that you can follow. So get the right people on board, I think, would be my advice.
Okay.
For me, I think the most important part is, as Teresa said, the story which you're gonna tell to the viewers, and of course the locations and how you're gonna do it, which places you want to visit. Because it's happened to us in Nigeria. We went there to film our documentary episode, and since there's lots of tribes there, we really had a hard time getting there, getting the equipment there, protecting the equipment, like sleeping, like hotels, and where do we sleep and stuff like that. So I think it's really important to plan what you're gonna do there when you actually go there to film the documentary. I just wanted to add this also.
And
I
also,
agree.
you know, the fact, Dhruv, that you guys are doing everything from drama series to documentaries. Does the documentary department always feel like they get shortchanged, and it's always the drama series that gets more attention, especially since you reach out to customers across different parts of the world. There's obviously going to be more interest for the drama series, I presume. So what are some of the big challenges facing documentaries today?
I mean, as you said, most of the people that we reach out to asks for Turkish TV series, Turkish drama TV series. But what happens is there's like thematic channels, TV stations and thematic channels who only does documentaries, who only airs documentaries. And with the rise of the AVOD, SVOD platforms, it's really, really a good chance to promote our documentaries and stuff like that. So we don't really have much difficulties while promoting the documentaries, since
Right.
we always try to find really good quality documentaries with captivating stories and subjects. So it's not making really difficulties. But as you said, yeah, TV drama series is going up. So when I try to pitch a title to a client, I always hear back saying that, oh, these looks amazing, but please send me a couple of TV series as well so I can see what's happening right there. So yeah.
Okay. I have one last question I'm going to ask before I call it a day. And in the age of digital media and short attention spans, how can storytellers adapt their approach to still capture an audience's interest?
I think for me, the short form media, as we see on YouTube Shorts, Instagram Reels, and stuff like that, it always talks about some information with limited knowledge, and just like a knowledge pill. You get it in 10 seconds. You have a brief idea about what's happening, but then when you want to talk about the subject, like a really good, like a literal subject, when you want to talk about it, you don't know nothing at all. You just know the knowledge about that 10 seconds. So what we try to do with these fast moving like images, what we try to do is, as I said, we try to manage to get social media's help by selecting the subject that is taking an interest from the people, that people are really interested in. And then we try to make it not boring as much, talking about all the details and stuff like that. So we don't like I think the main thing is there's no narration on screen. We don't see someone that narrates the documentary and showing you like, here you can see this and here you can see that. So what we do is we put the narration on the back, so you don't see anyone. You just see the good visual style. You just see the imaginary. So people tend to live the moment and see what's happening on the screen. And here's the knowledge in the background. So it doesn't matter. It doesn't create like boredom, fatigue while watching the TV, because when there's a people on the screen, you tend to want to listen to them and look at their eyes, what they're saying, and you tend to miss what's happening behind the people.
Yeah.
So we doing something like this at the moment, and it's going really well. So this is what I want to say about the subject.
Interesting. Teresa, would you like to add to that?
Yeah, I'm just wondering whether the person asking the question means about the storytelling. It means that they're relating it to their storytelling, and whether that story is going to be received by the audience, and do they have enough meat on the story in the kind of the environment they're in. I don't know whether the question is, can I reach the audience on digital, or will my story travel? And I think it might be, will my story travel? I'm guessing, I might be wrong, but what I would say is,
I think they just want to know about how they can adapt their approach to capture an audience's interest. I think it's more about just keeping the audience
capturing.
Yeah.
So I think then you talk about what people don't know about. Then there's what story you're going to be telling, where is it going to be shown first of all, then you reveal something but not too much, so to capture their attention, so you don't want to give everything away. I think sometimes with formats, even formatted drama shows, I will get to episode, even like formatted fact tent shows, get to episode 9 and I get bored. And I think, okay, so I'll skip through. So I find myself, then thinking, oh, what it's like at Wimbledon, what are those key moments in a match? So you don't want to do that with your audience. What you want to do is you want to think the other way around. You don't want to give too much away. You want to get their attention to the point you want to draw them into the story. And that would be through character. I would say characters are then key. That would be my point. I hope that helps.
Thank you, guys. That's it. That's all we have time for today. I think we could have carried on this conversation for another 10, 15 minutes. But thank you, everyone, for attending. And a very, very special thank you to Teresa and Duruk, who especially was told at the last minute, but oh my God, your answers are awesome, for joining today. So audiences, in case you didn't watch the full session, a recording of this webinar will be published on the DICM.ae website by next week. The next webinar will be on the social shift, reshaping content creation and distribution. That will stream live on August 16th. So in case you don't know already, the DICM, that's Dubai International Content Market, is taking place from the 22nd to the 23rd of November this year. And for more information, you can visit their website, DICM.ae. So thank you, everyone. Stay safe. Goodbye. Have a lovely day.
Thank you. Bye. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Bye.